51. The development of the human fetus. 18th March, 1847. When the soul has developed the cartilages, muscles, bones and tendons described above, it will take further care to bring the outermost extremities to complete perfection through the correct and orderly use of the properties belonging to them. When this is also done, the soul withdraws into the intestines and begins to set the muscles of the heart in motion, through which movement the organs are first opened by their own watery juices and in a certain way pierced. When this puncture has taken place, the soul immediately sets the spleen in action. Thereby blood is immediately produced and led into the heart chambers, from where it is then also driven into the opened organs as soon as possible. Once the blood has made the first cycle, the stomach is set into action and immediately begins to bring the nutritive juices in it into a greater fermentation, whereby the nobler, more substantial substances are already separated, but the coarser, indigestible, slimy liquids are expelled through the natural emptying canal, whereby the liquid in the mother's bladder also comes from, which in a way is nothing other than the filth of the child already living in the mother's womb. After this fruit has spent 3 months alive in the womb of the mother, an eternal spirit is placed in the heart of the soul, which has become calm and whose spiritual heart has reached a certain solidity, by an angelic spirit. Of course, no one has to think of a material envelopment here, but a spiritual one, which is much stronger and more durable than a material one, which can already be seen from many things in the world, where it is easier to break through a material dungeon than a spiritual one. Take just once a poor man, and then an exceedingly rich man. Put the poor man up against a thick wall, and tell him to break through that wall. And he will take a crowbar and a strong hammer, and become master of the strong wall with them. But when he comes to the rich, hard-hearted man, he will not master the heart of the rich man with a crowbar, nor with a hammer, and still less by pleading. For this is enclosed with spiritual bonds, which no earthly power is able to break through. Only the Spirit of all spirits can do that. After the insertion of the Spirit into the heart of the soul, which action happens earlier in some children, later in others, in many 3 days before birth, the body will mature faster and the birth will proceed. During this time, a mother should refrain from all irritations and desires, for these desires and irritations usually originate from hell, and wherever the mother touches herself in such a state of irritation, the spirit placed in the soul is excited as the opposite pole, and draws the soul by correspondence into the excited place, and this drawing of the soul is then also reproduced on the body. This is the origin of the so-called birthmarks of children. That such a sign takes only a local small place, and not initially the whole soul, and afterwards the whole body, is caused by the spirits. Because if this would not be the case, then by such a careless touch and thereupon a complete branding of hell, a whole corruption of the soul, and with it the death of the body could happen. And that would be exactly what hell intends. Therefore, everyone should beware of such people who have many and considerable moles on their bodies, because not infrequently the infernal elements in such a being become more or less awake. And when they are awake, then the individual who has several such and considerably large markings on his body is not infrequently evil in one or the other sphere. Either such people believe nothing, or they are devoted to fornication, or to evil manners, and in one respect the warning can also apply here. Beware of the marked. For hell marks everything given to it, so that it could not be taken from it, and it would like to reclaim its own again after the expiration of the time limit, recognizing it as lawful. It is almost the same as in the world. The heavenly people also give of their possessions to their brothers and sisters, without promissory bill and seal, because they give it in order not to take it again, and there is never a trial. The people of the world also give, but never without a promissory bill and seal, so that they can take it back again after the time limit has expired. And if the debtors cannot pay them back again, there is a lawsuit and trial, and that is hellish, because hell sues and proceeds forever. However, you must not take this birthmarking so exactly, because if these marks are only few and very small, then they have either only very little and mostly also no reference to the above illumination. As it was already shown above, so the protecting and work-guiding spirits prevent hell from such evil doings and activities. And even if a child gets some signs during the fight of the good spirits with the evil ones, they are still only signs, stigmata, which do not carry any consequences, because the infernal elements have been removed from them. A psychologist could freely ask and say here, but how can the Lord, if he is one, together with his innumerable angelic host, which is equipped with all power and wisdom, allow the abominable hell to do such a thing to the most innocent fruit in the womb? That is most unwise, and sounds very much like powerlessness. But then I say, to each his own. Let the tares grow together with the wheat until the time of harvest. Then all the hellish will be separated from the heavenly most exactly, and the heavenly will be brought to heaven, and the hellish again to hell. And because of this, no soul will be lost, even if it already has 1,000 infernal marks in it, for these will be taken from it and assigned to hell. But everything will depend on the fact that the soul, through humility, has made itself free of its spirit. If it has freed the spirit, then it will also become free from everything through it. But if it has not, then it will remain imprisoned until the spirit has not lost its sevenfold envelopment and has then become one with the soul. When the child is born from the mother's womb, the lungs are set into activity, and the child then begins to take in an innumerable amount of elements from the air with each breath, which are immediately used for the formation of the nerve mind and for the strengthening of the soul. That is, as far as its substantial formal being is concerned. But what concerns its inner properties and intelligence nourishment, it gets through the senses of the body. And all this is ordered by the good spirits in this sphere. With this present enlightenment, you have the spiritual sphere of the first region, what it is and happens in it, revealed as clearly as possible for you. A greater and more thorough revelation of this matter cannot be conceived for the reason that the spiritual can never be given by earthly words in the clarity as it is in itself. But he who possesses a right feeling and can hear, look, touch, and feel with it, will find with great ease in it the thorough conviction of what has been said here irrefutably in the greatest clarity. Thus, however, we will also be finished with this first region, and next we will still go very briefly into the interior of the earth, and thus close this communication.